Well, let's talk about placing our LODs for our ecosystems. Now I have merged in my assets, my LOD ecosystem assets. I have LOD 1, 2, 3, 4, and soft and hard collision. I click on edge faces, you can see that a little bit better. My highest resolution being the LOD 1 and on down to LOD 4. So for the purposes of this lesson, we are going to populate our scene with LOD 1, which will be representative of the location for LOD 1, 2, and 3, depending on the number of LODs that are required for your game. And also that pivot point location will be good for placing the collision objects as well. LODs are placed usually by game code. They are swapped out depending on the distance the game camera is from a particular asset. So for this particular exercise, we'll be placing the LOD 1 within our reset zone, and we will be placing LOD 3 and LOD 4 outside of the reset zone. Alright, so let's demonstrate LOD 4 placement. You'll have a specified distance remaining from the game camera. We're going to create an instanced object and leave the initial objects that were brought into the scene in their place. So now that we have an instanced object, we can go ahead and place that. And I've placed a number of them in this location so that as I bring my tree in, I'll just want to make sure that the tree is planted just below the surface. Now you can see the blue vectors of these other trees, and what those represent is a look at constraint looking at the camera, and I'll demonstrate how you can apply that. What that does is simply constrain the polygon 2D LOD eco object to the camera, so wherever the camera goes in the reset zone, the polygons will be looking at the camera, and so they won't appear to be flat. This object being selected, I simply go to the animation, constraint, look at constraint, and it gives me a selection with an attachment here, and I select on the camera, and you can see now that the camera is constrained, or the object is constrained to the camera with a look at constraint, and it is weighted at 50%. And you can see that the polygon has changed direction, and the direction of that polygon can be managed with the axis. You can see that it's changing direction as I click on the various options. We're using X, and as I set that camera into motion, you can see that those trees will continue to remain parallel to that game camera, so they will never look flat, even though they are. Now the additional LODs for the eco, we're going to distribute the 3D version, 3D LOD for this particular eco object. And this is also going to be distributed or populated outside of the reset zone. I'm hitting the shift key down, dragging, it gives me the window. It's going to be an instanced object, top view. I'm going to pull that into place where I have some trees already waiting for me. Okay, side view. spin that around and position that tree. I'm pressing Z on the keyboard. And planting this tree near the waters. My water plane is not in here currently, but I know that's where it is. And with these three-dimensional trees, you can, even though they're instanced objects, you can scale them up and down. You can rotate them to give them more variance in their display. Right, so those, again, you need to check and make sure that the distance specifications are being adhered to for your 2D polygon trees as well as your 3D polygon trees behind the reset zone. Even though they are within the reset zone, if you put them here, they may not be adhering to the distance specs for the game camera. So knowing where that boundary is for the game camera is critical, because you'll need to place them in an area at a distance where they will be seen and used effectively. You don't want them too close to that border where the game camera is going to see that they're 3D and very low 3D objects and 2D objects. Alright, and then for the LOD1 objects, the highest resolution objects, we are going to place those within the reset zone, and the game code typically does the work for us as long as our LODs are named correctly to the specifications and the pivot point is in exactly the right location. With those two things in mind, and we can make sure that the LODs are popping in correctly, and you have less chance of actually seeing them pop in. So, creating an instanced object, I'm leaving all of the original objects in the location that they came in below the terrain so that I have access to them at all times. I'm just going to distribute this one with this grouping that I have up here on the hill. Spin this around, bring it up, zoom in, and plant it in the ground. There we go. So that we can fill our world with our ecosystem. Now, you likely have more than one tree or one plant to populate into your level, which is great. That'll help fill that up. But as you do, you want to make sure to keep in mind where your game camera is. Your proxy camera will hopefully help you with that. And where your high traffic areas are going to be for your game, perhaps along a road, as you can see here, or around this area that I've chosen for my architectural feature. And you'll want to make sure that you populate your assets in those locations where the game camera is likely going to see them the most. And you can, there are other tricks that you can play with maps and so forth to be able to show that there are plants in areas that are further away without actually having to spend the polygons portraying that in areas that you're really not going to get close to. So keep that in mind when you're populating your scenes with your LOD assets for your ecosystems, and you will be able to run your levels at the frame rate that you hope to. Right, in the next lesson we will talk about populating your scene with your architectural assets.